What is going on, guys? This is Jake at thatfitfriend.com, and today I'll be comparing the Reebok Nano X5 to the Nike Metcon 9 to the Adidas Dropset 3. This is the battle of the big brands. Not everybody in the world has access to a lot of the smaller companies, so I wanted to put this video together because a lot of folks do have access to Reebok, Nike, and Adidas, and if you're considering one of their top tier or top end cross-training shoes, which should you go with? Let's talk about 4 of the main differences to expect between these shoes. So the first major difference is the midsole of each shoe and how that is going to influence your training. In the Adidas Dropset 3, you have a dual density midsole. So the midsole foam back here is a lot more dense and stable compared to up here in the forefoot. You also have this cutout here in the midfoot. Now, when it comes to stability with lifting, the shoe feels awesome and it has a nice like weightlifting shoe type of feel to it. So if you're big on back squats or needing a shoe that feels very grounded with limited toe spring, that's where the Adidas Dropset 3's midsole is going to excel. It does give you a bit of pliability up here in the forefoot. So for athletic style stuff where you're heavy on the forefoot, this model can also be solid. However, with this heel and how it kind of juts out, it can somewhat tank this shoe's performance for versatility and short runs. With the Nike Metcon 9, you also have a dual density foam midsole. It's a little bit more stable on the outsides of the shoe, and then it's a little bit more plush on the internal part of the foam up here in the forefoot. Now, when it comes to versatility, the forefoot of the shoe does a decent job, but what really hinders the Nike Metcon 9 in the sense of how its midsole interacts for versatility with training is with this TPU cutout here back in the heel. This is going to tank the shoe's performance for plyos and short runs, and so this is a much more lifting bias shoe when it comes to the density of its midsole. In the Reebok Nano X5, you have a dual response midsole as well, so the midsole does have a slight variance to it regarding its feel. Up here in the forefoot, it's a little bit softer, and then back here in the heel, it is a little bit more dense. You also have that TPU insert here through the midfoot that the Nano X3 and Nano X4 had, but when it comes to versatility, this shoe takes the edge compared to these two. The midsole will feel a lot more plush, it's a lot more forgiving for plyos, short runs, and it's going to give you a little bit more variety regarding HIIT workouts and cross training. And it is decently stable. It's not going to be as dense as these two shoes when it comes to maximal loading, but I think for most folks, the density of the Nano X5 will likely be just fine for most strength training needs. The second major difference to note between these shoes is their upper constructions. So in the Nano X5, you have the flex weave upper, and you have a little bit more space throughout the volume of this upper compared to the Nano X4. If you wore the Nano X4 and you thought they fit too snug, this model should feel better in my opinion. It feels very much more similar to the Nano X2 regarding its width and upper volume, and it feels a lot more true to size in my opinion compared to the Nano X4, but you have this flex weave upper with synthetic overlays, and then back here in the heel, you have a bit of structure and additional padding to help lock that foot down. For the most part, the shoe does a pretty good job with preventing heel slip. That was an issue we saw at times with the Nano X3 and somewhat in the Nano X4. The Nano X5, I think, does a pretty good job. Now, I will say the tongue is a little bit short in the shoe, but for the most part, this upper has done a pretty good job regarding breathability, providing volume, and with overall security for training. In the Nike Metcon 9, you have a chain link mesh upper with some haptic overlays here on the medial forefoot. This gives the forefoot a lot more structure when it comes to weight around the foot. You get good security with this upper, but it does limit some of its breathability. And then looking at the midfoot, you also have these rubber rope guards that wrap up on this shoe that add a little bit of bulk to this model. This shoe has a slightly more low profile heel compared to the Dropset 3 and the Nano X5, and you also have a nice cup in this shoe with some additional padding, and the tongue in this model is a padded mesh and it has a lace lock system. So for the most part, the Nike Metcon 9's upper does a pretty good job with security. Its main downfall is its breathability. This shoe does not breathe that well. In the Adidas Dropset 3, you have a synthetic overlay covering the toe box, and then you have a chain link mesh that runs from the forefoot into the midfoot here. You have a bit of structure back here in the boot, and you have an additional padded mesh that wraps around the boot as well. This helps give this shoe a nice lockdown fit. I do not think you'll have heel slip issues in the Dropset 3 compared to the Nano X5 and the Nike Metcon 9, which can have some tendencies here and there for certain foot anatomies. This shoe tends to be pretty foolproof with that. And then with the tongue here, you have a padded mesh. So with the upper in this shoe, it does feel a little bit more robust than the Dropset 2. Some folks love that for durability purposes, but I will say it does give this shoe a slightly snugger fit. But when it comes to breathability and security, they are pretty solid in the Dropset 3. The third major difference to note between these shoes is their heel to toe drops. In the Dropset 3, you have a drop of 6 millimeters. In the Nike Metcon 9, I believe it sits around 4 millimeters. Nike hasn't really confirmed that, but I believe most of us are on the same page that they have kept it consistent with all the prior Metcon models to date. And when I reached out to their support, they suggested it was 4 millimeters, but they said, we're not sure. So I don't really understand why they can't be sure, but I'm gonna go with 4 millimeters just as a safe bet in the Nike Metcon 9. And then in the Nano X5 here, we have a drop of 7 millimeters. This is important to consider based on what you prefer with your training shoes. If you like a higher drop and a little bit more heel, that would be something to consider with the Dropset Dropset 3 and the Nano X5. And then once you've decided, okay, I do like a slightly higher heel to toe drop, do you need more versatility or stability? If you need more stability, go Dropset 3. If you need more versatility, go Nano X5. The Nike Metcon 9's 4mm drop tends to work for most individuals, and if you're not super picky and you're not really concerned about that and you like having a slightly lower drop, then obviously the Nike Metcon 9 would be a good call for your needs. The fourth major difference to note between these shoes is their outsoles and just general comfort and wearability. So with the Dropset 3 here, you have a full rubber outsole here with this traction grip. I love this outsole for training. However, something to note with this shoe is if you train outdoors a lot, this can fade pretty quickly up here because the lugs just aren't very dense. And then also you have this cutout here at the midfoot. This is problematic when it comes to wearability and comfort, because if you want to wear your shoes out and about, so you want that trainer that you can wear all day and then to the gym, and you live in damp settings or it rains, this is going to be a problem. So that would definitely be something to consider with the shoe. And then when it comes to overall wearability and comfort too, the heel of this shoe can kind of hinder its ability to feel comfortable all day when doing longer walks and whatnot. So definitely consider that with the Dropset 3. In the Nike Metcon 9, you have a full rubber outsole here with a break here in the midfoot. For the most part, this feels decent when it comes to wearability in the gym, but when it comes to all day wear, similar to the Dropset 3 over here, the Nike Metcon 9 I just find is not that comfortable. With the taper here in the midfoot, I don't necessarily love it. And then with the heel back here, it just hinders this shoe's performance for just general walking. And if you want that shoe to wear out and about for all day wear, this model I think is going to be problematic. You also hear some clicking with this shoe if you're walking on harder surfaces. And just trust me when I say this, it's not the most comfortable shoe for that context. With the Nano X5, this is going to be your best, most comfortable shoe of these three. It's a little bit more forgiving for all day wear. The midsole feels a lot better, and you also have a full rubber outsole tread here to help give you additional durability. And so all that said, this shoe I think is going to be your most comfortable option if you do want that training shoe that you can rock out casually and to run errands in and go for longer walks in, but then wear them to the gym. I think on top of the upper, that does have a bit more volume, that also helps contribute to the shoe feeling a little bit better. But now let's talk about some performance differences between these models. All right, so I'm gonna try to keep this section relatively simple. So when it comes to lifting, which is gonna be your best shoe for that ask? The Dropset 3 and the Nike Metcon 9 will take the slight edge for lifting. Now, if you're just a beginner or an intermediate and you just need that shoe for some general strength workouts, hypertrophy workouts, all of these shoes will work. But from a pure stability standpoint, the Dropset 3 I think is going to be your best shoe regarding feeling more weightlifting shoe-like, especially if you do like that higher heel. The Nike Metcon 9 can also be great with its stability. That TPU insert and the dense midsole also do a really good job. The Reebok Nano X5, again, it will work, but you will start to notice a little bit more compression in the shoe once you start to pass that like 405-pound threshold with your barbell lifts. Now, which model is going to be best for CrossFit? Honestly, that's where I might give the edge to the Reebok Nano X5 here. Both of these models can work, but again, you got to remember that the stability in the heels of these shoes, I think they just limit where they're going to excel for certain WODs. So if you, for example, know that your CrossFit box likes to program a lot of box jumps, a lot of short running intervals in your workouts, that is where the Nano X5 is going to excel. It just has that edge there for versatility in the context of CrossFit asks. These shoes, again, can work, but they'll likely be a lot more strong for the WODs where you're lifting very heavy with your cleans, snatches, squats, etc., versus needing that shoe that can do a little bit of everything. Now, which model is best for cross training? That is, again, where the Reebok Nano X5 is going to take the edge. Now, these shoes can be fantastic for athletic style workouts. And so when we talk cross training, we have to remember that there's going to be a spectrum here when it comes to versatility. If we're talking like just straight up HIIT classes where it's not going to be a ton of heavy lifting, it's going to be things like jump rope, box jumps, any form of side-to-side work blended with some short runs, maybe some light strength work, the Nano X5 would be the call. Now that said, if you're an athlete, for example, who is going to the gym to lift heavy and then do plyometrics and whatnot, the Dropset 3 and the Nike Metcon 9 can work. With the forefoots being a little bit more pliable with their density, they can be decent for forefoot heavy work. Just remember that if you're doing something like a broad jump or again, sprints and you're trying to decel and break, that is where the heels here, I think, will start to add up with the wear and tear of just how you feel these shoes interact with your body and the ground feel. When it comes to short runs, you've already probably guessed, the Nano X5 is going to take the edge here. Again, the Nike Metcon 9, the Dropset 3, you can do short intervals in them. If you're doing sprints, you can also tackle those in these shoes. But again, the decel and just the overall clunkiness of them, it's just not my favorite feature. I think if you're running on curved treadmills too, that can make these a little bit more doable. But if you're running outdoors or if you're running on a flat treadmill and you're not running on an incline with it, forget about it. These shoes can feel pretty uncomfortable. When it comes to daily wear, the Nano X5 also takes the edge here, and that's just because the upper in this model does have more room. It has more of that Nano X2 feel, feels a lot more true to size. I have an E to double E width foot, and I don't feel super limited in the shoe, and honestly, this dual response midsole I think is just really easy to wear all day, whereas the Dropset 3 and the Nike Metcon 9, they'll obviously have their limitations, which I've already hit on many times in this video, with their heel constructions and how they feel when you're walking and you're having that heel hit the ground and then transitioning into your step. All right, so when it comes to sizing and fit, so I have a normal arch and an E to double E width foot, and I wear true to size in all of these shoes. So size these similar to what you wear in other brands. So for example, if you're looking at the Nano X5 and you currently wear Nike or Adidas, go with the same size that you go with those brands in the Reebok Nano X5. But when it comes to their lengths, these are all size 10s. You can see that they're all pretty similar here regarding their lengths. Now, if you have a narrow foot, true to size will be the move in all of these shoes. If you have a medium width foot, I also think true to size will be a safe bet. Now, if you have an E to double E width foot or wider, you may want to go up a half size in the Dropset 3. The tweak in this shoe's upper construction, again, gives it a slightly snugger fit in the forefoot. With the Nike Metcon 9, they should fit true, but you also might want to go up a half size if you have that double E width foot or wider. It'll help give you a little bit more room in the toe box. And then with the Nano X5, I think most folks should be safe still sticking true to size in the shoe, but again, if you have 2E width feet and you just want to really hedge your bets, going up a half size in this model may also be a safe call. Honestly, I would say size these similar to your Nano X2. Again, that's what they remind me most of regarding their last construction and fit compared to the Nano X4, which was honestly very polar opposite from how this shoe feels. All right, y'all, hopefully this video helped answer some of the questions that you might have between the Dropset 3, Metcon 9, and Reebok Nano X5. If you need a shoe that's a little bit more well-rounded, that has better versatility, I think the Nano X5 is taking the edge here. If you need a shoe that's going to be very weightlifting shoe-like feeling for clean and jerk, snatches, big squats, the Dropset 3 can be an awesome bet. And then if you're somebody that wants a shoe just for your general strength and hypertrophy workouts, again, the Nike Metcon 9 or any of these models can really work well. If you have additional questions on these shoes, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.